Chapter 6. The Darkangel. The Riddling Rhyme. "You must kill the vampire," said the wraiths. One of them, one who could still stand, she paced back and forth along the wall near where Iriel sat on a low stool spinning. The golden spindle flashed deep yellow in the white lamplight. There were no garments left to make. She merely spun to pass the time. "What do you mean?" said Iriel, spinning a fine golden thread. Though her duties to them were done, she'd sit with the wraiths for hours on end now, talking to them, encouraging them to remember themselves and their pasts, or humming a quiet tune to herself. Whenever she sang, the wraiths grew still to listen, but they were pacing now, those that could stand, or rocking or writhing, or uttering little moans. "What makes you think I could kill the vampire?" she asked presently, looking down at her hands. Her words were very soft. "I've already tried and failed." "You looked into his eyes," said one of the wraiths. "A grave mistake," said another. "Now he has you in thrall." "I cannot kill him," said Iriel. "But he is evil," cried the wraiths, and the others echoed, "Evil, evil." Iriel stopped spinning and laid the spindle in her lap. She felt her heart grow troubled. "I know," she said. "I know that he is evil, but his beauty unmakes me. Every time he looks at me, I die." "So each of us thought," said one of the wraiths, "and he has killed us and stolen our souls, so we cannot die." "I am powerless against him," said Iriel. "If we had our souls back, we could depart to deep heaven," said one of them. Iriel shook her head, frowning. "Your souls are gone. I cannot help you." She took up the spindle again, but the thread broke at once, and the golden spool fell to the floor with a bright clink. "He keeps our souls in little vials," said one of the wraiths, creeping closer across the floor. "You've seen them, the little lead vials on the necklace he wears." "I thought," said Iriel, now puzzled, "that vampires drank souls." They do," said the wraiths eagerly. "But he is not a true vampire, yet," the wraith beside the first one said, and the other nodded. 14 vials on his leaden chain," said another wraith, the standing one. She bent low over Iriel as the girl sat on her stool. 14 vials, and 12 and 1 filled with souls, with our souls." "But," said Iriel, "if he does not drink them, why does he keep them?" "He's keeping them for the water witch," said the first, and the others chorused, "For the witch, the witch." "For a toast to the witch!" shrieked another above the rest, and then she fell to the floor, writhing and tearing her hair. The other wraiths tried to comfort her, but there was little they could do, for comfort comes from the reaching of one heart to another, and they had no hearts. "Who is the water witch?" said Iriel, bending over this distraught wraith. "His mother," said the wraith who stood. "His lover," said another. "She lives across the desert," said another still, "far and a long way away." "In a lake," said the fourth, or perhaps it was the first. Iriel listened now without looking at them. It was impossible to tell which one was speaking. Their faces and their voices were all the same. "They call it the mirror or the dead lake sometimes. She has 7 sons and they are all vampires except this youngest who will be very soon. She has sent them all out into the world to prey upon the kingdoms. But this one is not quite a vampire yet." The same hollow voice from a different quarter continued. "She has not taught him all her evils, and he still has his own soul, nor has he tasted another's yet. He's drunk our blood, but not our souls. He's keeping them in the vials the witch has given him. When all twice 7 of them are full, he will return to the dead lake and give them to the witch as a tribute. Then she will drink up our souls, and we shall perish truly. Our souls will not ascend as others do. They will sink into the witch's dark and be nothing." Silence a moment. "Though the death of our souls would end our torment, it would be the Lorelei's triumph. Even we cannot long for that, Iriel." Iriel looked up at the sound of her name. She'd told it to them, but they'd never used it. She thought they'd forgotten it, as they seemed to forget a dozen other things she told them. She had thought they could remember nothing for long. "You know my name," she said, and the wraith nodded. The one who stood before her pulled her features into a grotesque sort of grimace, more like a skull grinning than a human smile. "We whisper it to ourselves sometimes when you are gone," she said. "Iriel, we say. Iriel will help us." A sister wraith leaned past her to gaze at Iriel. Before you came, little one, we wanted only to forget our pasts, our present suffering, our fate. But you brought us back to ourselves a little, another one said, lightened our despair. Some of us can even bear remembering now in tiny snatches. A few of us, one wraith said softly, can even remember our names. Iriel's hand went to her throat. She felt as though she was strangling. Edwin, she whispered, scanning the withered, wasted faces. Which one of you is Edwin? The wraiths drew back, shifted uneasily, and eyed each other with their hollows. We shall not tell you, one began. Why? Demanded Iriel. Anger throttled her. Unless you help us. Her sister wraiths hissed and nodded their agreement. Iriel dropped her hand from her throat and sat a long moment gazing at the wraiths. What would you have me do? She said. Steal our souls back for us, they cried. Return us to our souls. How can I? Exclaimed Iriel. How should I get the necklace from him? You must kill him, said the wraiths. I've told you I cannot. You must, said the wraith who stood by her. Iriel, you must. How long have you been here? 6 months, said Iriel, feeling a vague dread creep upon her. Then in another 6 months, said the wraith, he will bring home a bride. Can you bear it? Can you bear her screams? And we shall scream with her, and the gargoyles. He'll make you weave her bridal gown. Her shroud, broke in another. The first continued, and attire her. Stop! Cried Iriel. It drove the other one mad, said the wraith. She'd only been here for a year, as you will have been when the time comes. She spun the thread for the bridal gown all day month before the Darkangel flew. And he paced restlessly through the rooms of the castle, another one said. He came to us and cried, All my wives! Why are all my wives so ugly? I must have a new one. Spin, girl, spin! She spun it, continued another one, but it was of pure horror, so sharp it cut her fingers as she spun, a thread of white terror and blood. And at noon, when the thread was spun, returned the first, the Icarus flew, and the girl wove a long scarf, a sari for the bride, while the sun descended slowly through the star-littered sky, until Solstar was nearly down, and the cloth done, and the vampire came again with his bride. That would have been Edwin, cried Iriel, standing. Pain and frustration tore at her. Please, she implored to them, tell me which one. The wraiths looked at each other and then at her. They shook their hands. Help us, they said, and you will know. Iriel stood stupidly, not knowing what to do. The girl spun the thread, another wraith continued. Your predecessor. Iriel shook her head to clear it. She wove the thread, the withered woman told her, and the Darkangel returned with his bride. The girl washed her and attired her as she was bidden, and brought her to the vampire's chamber, as she was bidden. By then Solstar was down. A wraith that sat at Iriel's feet said. The land lay dark, the gargoyles beginning to howl, and the little tiring maid ran all over the castle, trying to find some room where the sound could not be heard, and where she could not. And when she could not, she ran down into the caves, and stumbled deep into their darkness before the screaming stopped and she found peace. The Durrer searched for her long, the wraith beside her said. He told us so, her companion murmured. Searched for her long and finally found her, convinced her to eat a small something, but she was afraid of the light, and it took him till nearly sunrise to persuade her to come out of the dark into the air of the garden. But no sooner had they gone 20 paces, another broke in, before the sun was up and the Durrer bedazzled, and the girl saw the steps she'd strayed to so often, and this time she took them, for the Durrer could not call her back. Stop, said Iriel, stop. You know the ending of the tale. Yes, gasped Iriel, yes. Then you must kill him, said the wraiths, before the others die of him. I can't, said Iriel, weeping, for herself, for Edwin. He is too beautiful. Now, said the wraiths, while his soul is still his. How can such poison be so fair? Cried Iriel. How can he be both beautiful and evil? He is beautiful, said a wraith, because there's still some little good in him. Good in him? Echoed Iriel. Could that be? The words put a sudden irrational hope in her. Only a very little, said one of the wraiths, not enough to matter. He has been taught not to heed it, said her fellow beside her. He is evil, insisted another. He is still woefully evil. But there is yet some good in him, Iriel cried. The wraiths muttered amongst themselves, nodded reluctantly. His soul is still his, said one. The witch had drunk his blood, but not his soul. But she will, said another. When she has drunk our souls, then she will drink his. We shall die utterly, but he will live on after a fashion, for she has left him his heart. It is lead, not flesh, her sister interjected. There will be no good left in him then, the one who had spoken formerly continued, and he will grow ugly as we are, no, uglier. Iriel sank down on her stool again. She could not speak. A wraith on the floor beside her touched her arm. And now he drinks blood, trying to replenish his bloodlessness. Then he will drink souls in an effort to fill up his soullessness. In vain! He will become a drinker of souls and a true vampire. Iriel put a hand to her mouth. She felt stifled. The water witch will do this to him, she choked. Drink up his soul and make him ugly. Her throat was tight and sore. Pity and anger rose again in her suddenly. No, I cannot let her have him. Then you must kill him, said the wraiths. No, I must think on it, she finished lamely. The wraiths gazed at her, hopelessness deepening the hollows of their eyes. Perhaps there is a way to overcome him without his death, stammered Iriel. It cannot be done, the wraiths replied. I must try. He will kill you, they all cried, miserable. Then I shall die, she answered, her voice trembling, and she trembled. The wraiths turned away from her and started to moan. Iriel will not help us. Iriel sat down on her stool again and said nothing more for a time. She unwound the spindle and looped the thread around her elbow into a skein. The skeining took a long while, for the thread was so fine that many yards could be wound onto that tiny spindle, and all the while the wraiths keened and wrung their hands in despair. Iriel took the skein from her arm, twisted it and tossed it into the basket half full already of the golden skeins. I must go down and talk to the Durrer, she said, rising from her stool. The wraiths shrieked and wept in defeat. Iriel left them. The wraiths say I must kill the vampire, said Iriel, as she waded carefully across the lighted stream to the far bank where the Durrer sat fishing on a quiet back eddy with the hook of a thorn, a horsehair line and a rod of cane. Iriel sat down on the bank beside him. What's that you say? He asked sleepily, head nodding in the fragrant white smoke of the little fire beside him. Ah, well, I thought they'd come to it. Iriel looked at him puzzled, and he roused himself enough to notice. Oh, yes, they asked all the others too, you know. The one before you and the one before her. Yes, they asked them all and all refused. No, I retract that. One of them actually attempted it. She failed, of course. He shook his head. The others? One of them took her own life rather than face it. Another missed her step on the tower stairs and plunged to her death. Another died for loneliness. The last lost her mind and tried to run away. The Durrer glanced at Iriel. Ah, the castle above is only death and death. Don't spend too much time up there, child. Come down to the caves. Here is life. At that moment, Iriel saw a nibble on his line, and the little man fell silent to concentrate on hooking a tiny cave fish barely as long as the hand is broad and quicker than quicksilver. Iriel watched him in silence until the fish was caught and strung on the fish line, and the Durrer sat baiting his hook again with a white cave cricket. I do not want to kill the vampire, she said at last. I want to save the wraiths, but not to kill him. The Durrer glanced at her with upraised eyebrows, then back at his rush-pole quickly. And how would you propose to do that? He asked, slowly, as if not greatly interested. Iriel gazed off across the lighted water and sighed. But she could see out of the corner of her eye the Durrer was watching her intently as she spoke. I do not know, she said, but there must be a way. Her voice did not tense or rise with frustration now. She spoke softly and with conviction. I am determined to find it. The Durrer eyed her for a long moment. Then she did not turn to him, but continued to gaze off across the water. Then he too turned back to look out over the lighted stream. He shook his head a trace. Ah, daughter, he said, It's a strange thing you would do. Perhaps it's possible, perhaps it's not. But granting for the moment that I might brew a draught that would render the Icarus insensible. Ariel turned to him, startled. You can do that? Make such a dram? She said. But how? He smiled a little then. I'm a son of the earth, child. I know a little magic. But if you know how this was to be done, she cried. It was the first time she'd ever found herself angry with the Dara. How is it you've not done it before? The little man shook his head again. I did not say that I could do it, Talban said gently. I said I might with your aid. I could only do the half of it, another must do the rest. But there were others before me, insisted Ariel, still angry and refusing to soften. The Dara sighed a trace, very sadly. Ariel saw a crayfish take his bait without being caught. But think, daughter, think, her companion said. What good could lie in such a scheme? He'd only steal the souls of 14 other maidens to refill his vials. Ariel looked away. Her anger had faded. But, she murmured, if he could be prevented. How, child? The little man inquired, as solemn as Ariel had ever seen him. She watched him gather in his line. Do you propose to chain him like the gargoyles? No! Cried Ariel. Her own vehemence surprised her. The Dara laid his pole on the sandy bank beside him. Tell me, he said quietly, why do you not wish the vampire to perish? Ariel drew up her knees and clasped them, and stared off towards the wall of the opposite strand. She suddenly felt very cold. I love his power and his beauty, the magnificence and the majesty of him, his splendour and his authority, his surety. Her voice trailed away. The little man rose a bit stiffly from his sitting place on the bank and looked down at her thoughtfully. But do you love him, child? The Dara asked. Ariel fell silent. No, I cannot. He's murdered, worse than murdered, my friend Edwin and 12 other maidens. No, I do not love him. She closed her eyes, defeated. The wraiths are right. I know that he must die. The Dara drew in his breath and let it out again, then nodded as to himself. He stooped and drew his laden fish line out of the water and stood twirling it slowly, looking at nothing and frowning fiercely as in thought. Well enough then, he murmured as if reluctant. Well enough. He must be stopped. That is decided. And if not one way, then another. Now, first task is to fetch the chalice hoof of the immortal horse. The blade, I think I can attend to myself. And as for the apparatus... He muttered other things for a few moments, then, things utterly incomprehensible to Ariel. At first she thought to speak, but then let it go. Sitting there beside the quiet eddy, in the dimness, away from the bright gleam of the fire, through the water, though the water had a faint radiance of its own, enough to see by, Ariel felt suddenly sleepy. The Dara seemed to come to himself presently. He shook his head in a trace as if to clear it and knelt back on the bank itself. Ariel began to fumble about in the many hidden pockets of his robe. He drew out a scaling knife and began to scale his catch. I will tell you a rhyme, child, he said. One I found in a musty old book lying under the dust in the archives. It's a prophecy, not a prediction of what will be, mind you, he told her. No things exist, but rather a foretelling of what may be. A formula for the undoing of the Icarus. Ariel glanced at him, uneasy, surprised. I have not said that I will help you, she said, almost under her breath. The Dara did not seem to hear. She stared down at her knees. The sand, the water, the opposite shore. Her mind was torn, and she knew it should not have been. She should have longed wholeheartedly for the Darkangel's destruction, and she did not. I must think on it, she told the Dara. Her companion nodded, turning the fish over in his hand and scaling the other side. Think on it then, daughter, he said. His tone was kind, at leisure. But learn the rhyme also. It's a good thing to know. This is the way of it. On Averic's white plain, where the Icarus now wings, to the steeps of terrain from Tour of Kings, And damsels twice 7 his brides have all become, a far cry from heaven and a long road from home. Then strong hoof of the star-horse must hallow him unguessed, if adamant edge is to plunder his breast. Then only may the war-horse and the warrior arise, to rally the war-hosts and thunder the skies. There now, do you have that? The Dara inquired. He finished his first fish and put it in his sleeve, and then he started on the second. That is only the first 4 couplings, but so much will suffice for now. Can you say it back to me? Iriel made a clumsy attempt, and she swallowed a yawn. She wondered how long it had been since she last slept. The Dara gently corrected her wording, recited the poem again, and had her say it back. He slipped the second fish into his sleeve as Iriel tried again. All 12 tiny cave fish had disappeared into the pockets of his robe before Iriel got the lines recited 3 times correctly. Go now, the little man told her, and rest. You do not look as if you have seen sleep in a long turn of the stars. Iriel rose from the sand. Her limbs felt heavy and her eyelids near shutting. Tell me, her companion inquired just before she waded back across the stream. Do you understand it? The rhyme, I mean. Iriel shook her head, nodding sleepy. What does hallow him unguessed mean? She asked him. The little man was winding his horsehair line about his pole. It means to salute or to challenge or pursue him, he answered, all unawares. Iriel frowned, puzzled. I thought hallow meant to purify or to bless. The Dara shrugged his shoulders. His lips smiled slightly. Words can mean different things, mistress. Perhaps it is I who do not understand the rhyme. He gave her a rush from the fire and for light. Go now and rest. The sleep will fix your memory, and we can work more on deciphering the rhyme when you return. Iriel nodded and smiled a little drowsily. She turned and held her rushlight high as she waded back across the stream.